Well, it did turn out to be a two-part video. So first, Treasurer Geithner, and now Chris Dodd. And Chris Dodd, by the way, is a Democrat. And he was also instrumental in basically screwing up this entire health care legislation. Thank you very much. So who the hell do you think these people are actually working for? Just so we know why the Cat Food Commission, and this is the new deficit commission created by Obama, all appointed, these are appointees. These are not elected people, for one thing. This is why the Cat Food Commission is going to try to finally teach the most vulnerable how cat food can actually taste great in the new cardboard homes living on the streets or in tent cities, lest it be what it's all about. I mean, let's be honest about this. To pay off what Wall Street banks stole from our nation, to repay the toxic debts that are still being held someplace and are being held in secret by the Freedom of Information Act, that Bloomberg has a huge case against, by the way, and that we still do not have the right to look at, well, guess what's going to happen next? That's how the largest theft in history of the world was carried out. 300 million people worked to save their whole lives, to set aside $2.5 trillion into retirement system. Basically, it wasn't even meant for retirement. It was, I disagree with the pollster here, it was meant basically as a fundamental safety net in old age and if you happen to have a disability, okay? So it's like an insurance policy, okay? And if you were paying into it and at a fair compounding rate of, let's say, 5% interest over 40 years, then that 2.5 trillion would have ended up being 8.4 trillion today. Enough money to give 100 million workers $84,000 each in cash. The looting of our Social Security Trust Fund hid the massive national deficits of the last 30 years in the greater budget. Presidents and Congress were able to reduce taxes on the wealthiest of Americans without complaint from the deficit hawks who are now complaining today. Because they're the ones who benefited. Who do you think Pete Peterson is? The one who puts all this deficit stuff out there. He is a multi-billionaire. And he is ranting and raving against people, middle-class people, lower middle-class people who absolutely depend on their Social Security when they retire, that it isn't necessary for them. Or that it should be privatized, invested in the stock market, so that these guys can make even more money. So this is what we're faced with, and with all the hoopla out there now about the deficit, the average American is just going to applaud this and say, great, we need to reduce the deficit, without thinking ahead of future Americans in this country who will be left with nothing once the market crashes, if they happen to be 60 years old when they retire. I'm talking about people who are maybe 30 years old today, not even thinking about it. At 25, 30 years old, just like me when I was that age, you don't think what's going to happen down the line. You don't think you're ever going to need a government sort of safety net until something goes wrong. And that's why the system was created. So I will back Ted up on this. And I'm going to try to post this as a response to Ted's video here. Thanks for listening.